So what is the space race and who actually won it? United States or the Soviet Union? So first of all, if any of you didn't know, the space race was a period between the Soviet Union and the United States where there was steady competition over who would conquer space exploration first. In between this period of time, these two superpowers made many discoveries, completed many missions, and some would say that during this time, there was the quickest progress ever made for space exploration, including the moon landing, the first satellite, the first dog in space to the first man. This time marks some of the prime periods for space exploration. So the space race was an outgrowth of the mid-20th century Cold War. This basically was a period of tense conflict between the United States, capitalism, and communism. From the late 1950s to the mid-1970s, United States and the Soviet Union were in a competition between who could conquer space first. Now, as we start off this competition, some would say that in the beginning, the Soviet Union was definitely winning, because on October 4th, 1957, they announced that they had successfully launched the first satellite, Sputnik. A month later, they launched Sputnik 2, which carried a dog named Laika. So this made the Soviet Union the first to send a living creature into outer space. Once news reached the United States, people began to panic because they knew that the Soviet Union got on a quick head start and was quickly advancing to even more ventures. So the United States decided that it was important that we start a separate organization for space exploration as a whole. Right before this though, in 1957, America attempted its first satellite, Vanguard TV3. After launching, it almost immediately crashed right back on the launch pad. This was quite a rough start for the United States. They did manage to launch Explorer 1 on January 31st, 1958, which was successful, and after this, they decided that a private body for space exploration must be set up. So NASA officially opened for business on October 1st, 1958. And since then, as we know today, NASA has grown into a massive organization with some of the biggest space explorations under their belt. Now, after the US was slowly gaining some momentum, the Soviet Union again comes out with another victory. They sent the first man in space who successfully completed a 108-minute flight orbiting the Earth a single time. But unfortunately, later on, this man would die in an accident during a routine training flight. But a month after this victory by the Soviet Union, the United States was able to catch up with some more momentum, with Alan Shepard becoming the second man in space. But unfortunately, he said that because of where he was put in the spacecraft, he wasn't really able to see that many stars or get a really good view of what was actually outside of him. So as we can see here by these few events, the Soviet Union was definitely gaining quick ground over the United States, but this would change in the upcoming events because President Kennedy committed to the lunar program, and once this commitment was made by the president, all the resources to do this came with it. Unfortunately, as you may know, Apollo 1 ended in a tragedy where a flash fire broke out during a simulated launch for the lunar module, where lives were unfortunately lost. Now, after this, the United States was fully set on conquering the moon. The space race was really just a race to the moon between the United States and the Soviet Union. After President Kennedy made a directing speech regarding this topic, NASA budget was increased by 89% with one clear goal: to get to the moon before the Soviets did. So as we know, on July 16th, 1967, Apollo 11 launched from Kennedy Space Center. 4 days later, on July 20th, Neil Armstrong became the first man to walk on the moon. This, in many people's eyes, marks the exact moment the United States won the space race. Although it partially did continue after the moon landing with some flybys of Venus and some other spacecraft launched by the two countries, this was by far the main event. Millions of people though do persist that the moon landing was a hoax and that no one has ever actually stepped foot on the moon. So if this is actually true, this would definitely have the Soviet Union winning the space race. But more than half a billion people watched this historic event live, which was broadcasted on television. Before NASA's success with the 1969 moon landing, the Soviets had been working hard trying to develop things that could land on the moon, pick up dust and bring it back to Earth, send objects there safely without them breaking or crashing into the moon, but unfortunately all these attempts failed, making the United States the clear winner of the space race. Now, recently some believe that a new space race has begun with the United States against countries such as China, India, and our old rival Russia. But today the world is much more complex than it was back in the days of the Cold War, with Elon Musk's SpaceX and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin constantly in competition to show off their spaceflight capabilities, with Elon Musk's hope to have a colony on Mars by 2050. So if you enjoyed this short episode, make sure to subscribe as we continue to explore the wonders and mysteries of the universe.